Okay, the first thing we're going to do is get the pasta in the water. I have a large part of water here, and I'm going to put about a tablespoon, a big handful of salt. It's probably a tablespoon or tablespoon and a half in the water so that the noodles can cook in salted water. Now I'm using baked ziti. The nice thing about noodles is I've used every single kind of noodles, you know, not the teeny ones, but big noodles. You can use elbows, large elbows, ziti, anything. This kind of takes all of that cheese sauce and brings it into the middle of it, and it's so delicious. So I'm going to use this. This seems to be a family favorite, and this recipe is actually a total family favorite. It's on the list of things they've asked me to make. So this is a pound of noodles, pasta, and you put it in, and I just give it a quick stir so it doesn't clump together, and I'll stir it a few more times until it gets boiling. And that will cook. So the cook time on this for al dente is about 8 minutes. The trick to this for me is to undercook this, because it's going to go in the oven when the whole thing gets put together, and cook again, and so the noodles get really mushy. This leaves them a little firmer than you would expect, and it's just delicious. So I'm going to cook this for 6 minutes. So the second step is we're going to make a white sauce. It's also called a bechamel sauce. It's one of the mother sauces. It's very easy, not scary. And so it consists simply of butter, flour, and milk. And it just makes this nice sauce. And I used to put cheese in the sauce. I no longer do that, but I'm going to talk through that as well. Okay, so we'll turn the oven on here to no more than medium and let this get going so that butter can melt. And this has started boiling, so I'm going to give it another stir, and then I'm going to set the timer. Okay, that's going. So now we're going to melt this butter. This is a stick of butter. And you can use a little bit less butter if you want to. This is not a low-calorie meal, but it's worth a little scoop. So we're going to just watch this, and you're going to see it start to bubble. You want this bubbling before you put the flour in. Grab a whisk. And once again, this is okay, but I know it's bubbling too fast for when I put the flour in, so I'm going to turn it down to a little medium-low here. And once this is bubbling, you're going to sprinkle your flour in. And this is a thickener, really. And you just want to get that in there. And that needs to bubble for a minute at least, because if you don't let that bubble, the flour taste comes through. I have done this where I've just thrown it in at this point and been done, but there is a huge difference if you just let this boil for, simmer for a minute or two to get rid of that flour taste. And that's really, I like the way this looks. Okay, I think that's good. So the next thing you want to do with this, you've got that all mixed in, is you want to add your milk, and I've got about 6 cups of milk for this amount of butter and flour. I have never in my life measured this. I normally do this by eye. And so I measured it today. I may have to doctor it a little bit. I do a lot of this I've made it so much I know what I'm looking at. But at this moment, we'll just start stirring. And so the most dangerous part about this sauce is that it's a milk product and it can burn to the bottom really quickly. So there's a fine art of making the temperature just right so that it heats itself up but doesn't burn to the bottom. And so I have learned over the years that at this moment in time, you just need to stand here with this, but I don't need to keep continuously stirring it at this point, but you want to stir it frequently enough so that you keep an eye on what's happening on the bottom. I can feel the bottom of the pan, and if it starts sticking, you're going to feel that, and you immediately want to turn your heat down first, and then you want to start scraping that up, because when it first starts, it's okay, but if it sticks and then burns, it's the flavor of that burn is going to go all the way through your milk, and you're going to have to start over. So you want to keep an eye on this, on the temperature of what you're doing. And I am going to dip some of this water out of here. Pasta water is a nice thickener when you need it, and I may not, but it's nice to have just in case, so I don't always dump it. So turn your burner off. It's been 6 minutes. I don't even need to test those noodles because I know they're going to cook. I can tell by looking at them. So I'm just going to go over here with my strainer and drain those. And I just put them back in the pan and put them back on the burner and just let them sit there. And that sauce is still okay, so I'm going to get my cheese out. Okay, so I have some cheddar cheese here, which is what I normally use. You can use whatever kind of cheese you want. Mozzarella, I don't think makes a good macaroni and cheese. I like the cheddar. It's got a nice flavor. And I don't know how much to tell you to use on the cheese, but I usually use probably three of these, at least this much of this cheese. I like a lot of cheese. The macaroni and cheese is awesome, and once again, I'm going to put it together and just eyeball it. This is a matter of choice. If you want to use half of it, that's fine. I just like a really creamy cheese sauce. Okay, that's warming up. Okay, so I'm just going to grate it. You can grate this in a food processor or however you want to grate it. I just do it by hand, and it's just the way I've always done it. I think that's good. Okay, so we've got our cheese there. Okay, so while that's working, I'm going to put the noodles in the pan. See if I still, oh yeah, I like this. And that way they kind of cool off a little bit and don't keep cooking so much, but they look fine. And so that's where we're going to put all the sauce and cheese. So now I can feel a little resistance on the bottom, and I know it's not burned, and it's also not coming off, but now is the time when you just kind of stand here and carefully keep that agitated just a little bit, because it will be boiling soon. The spoon comes in handy if you do feel anything on the bottom. I'm stirring it slowly so that I keep as much of the heat in there as I can. There's a balance. If you stir it too fast, it just keeps cooling itself off. So I'm trying not to move this too much while keeping the bottom clear. You can tell by the way it's coming up on the sides that it's thickening up. If you burn it, don't feel bad. Just start over. So I'm going to turn the oven on to 375 and let that preheat. See, it's getting nice, it's thicker. It's got a little bit of, not debris, but a little bit of milk from the bottom. But because I'm stirring, and I'll take the whisk afterwards and incorporate that, I'm not going to strain it. But sometimes if you feel like you've got a lot of those lumps from the pieces from the bottom, you can strain this when you're putting it into your, whatever you're making. If I was making custard or something like that, I would definitely strain this, but there's very few pieces in here. And I'll whisk it up a little bit at the end, and it will be fine. Okay, so here it's now boiling. And that now we're gonna stir. I'm gonna let that get going. I just cleaned the bottom, so we're okay for a second. And I'm gonna let this, make sure it's going, and then turn it down. And I'm just gonna let that flour mixture and flour and butter work its magic. And I don't need this sauce, like I said, too thick, so I'm not gonna, we're just gonna go for a little bit here. So you see, you just want that to keep going. Then I'm gonna whisk that up and turn this off. Just gonna whisk it in case there are any little pieces in there, but I was really careful, and so I can tell just by the way I'm stirring it that I'm not seeing any pieces come to the top when I stir it. So I'm gonna leave that alone. Okay, so that's that step. So I can show you what I'm doing without making a huge mess. So we're gonna change it again. So we're gonna put this in here, and I'll give you the measurements of this in a little bit. And I'm gonna take this cheese and I'm gonna put it on top of all of these noodles. It's all shredded. The cheese, the sauce is chilling down just a little bit. And I say chilling, I mean cooling just a bit. Okay, I'm gonna give this sauce just a stir. And then I take this, my burner's off, and I just pour this over the cheese and the noodles. Now you've got some, you're gonna be able to melt this. And then and this is the reason I moved this, because stirring this can get messy, and I thought I would just put it in a bigger pan so it didn't make a mess. Stir this up. And I know this looks really wet and really juicy, but when this comes out, it's going to be a smooth and creamy, yummy macaroni and cheese. And so if you want to add a topping like Ritz crackers mixed with butter, go ahead and do that. This would be the time to do that now. But what you would do is just cover that with the crumbs and then put it in the oven. So I just put this in until the top gets all brown. And that will probably be about 25 to 30 minutes. So I'm gonna put it in for 20 just to make sure. Okay, so the mac and cheese is as done as I want it to get, so I'm going to take it out. So this wasn't browning as much as I wanted it to, so I did put the broiler on for a couple of minutes, but this is the macaroni and cheese. It should sit for 10 or 15 minutes to kind of settle, and so I'll be back in a bit. So it's been about 15 minutes, and it's cooled off enough to serve. It really could cool off a little bit more, but let's be realistic. So I'm going to give this a good scoop. And as you can see, that's just creamy and delicious. And there's our macaroni and cheese. Enjoy.